Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Lisa Stroda. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Holistic Life Coach podcast, where you'll get some motivation, inspiration, and value from movers, shakers, world changers, and unabashed dreamers. If you'd like to share your story, contact me through the show's website, theholisticlifecoachpodcast.com, and we'll see if you're a good fit. Now, on to this week's episode. Hello, beautiful soul. I'm chatting with pharmacist Jim Perry, owner of District Drugs in Rock Island, Illinois. Jim was selected as the Pharmacist of the Month by the Professional Compounding Sources of America and was the 2008 Illinois Innovative Pharmacist of the Year. Welcome to the pod, Jim.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me here.
Well, I am really interested how you began on your path to becoming a pharmacist and how you became a compounding pharmacist, since I've noticed there aren't that many compounding pharmacists around.
Sure.
So
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking about this when we were talking one time about what made me kind of interested in pharmacy, and I was thinking back to probably around seventh grade. Actually, I was in art class, and I was charged to make some kind of pottery. And I remember that I was really fascinated by making some type of mortar and pestle, even at that time. And so I went together and put this thing together, and it wasn't very good, but that kind of, I totally forgot about that story until we were talking. That I think even at a young age that I was kind of interested in pharmacy that way. Even probably before that, I had a neighbor who actually became a pharmacist. But when we were younger, he was a drummer, so therefore I became a drummer, and so that was kind of interesting. And he was also kind of this kid who had this really kind of neat chemistry set back in his basement that he kind of set up underneath the stairs, and I would watch him, kind of do things with that. And so it always kind of fascinated me. So when he was talking about going into pharmacy school when he was in high school later on in the years, that kind of also got me thinking that I may want to look into pharmacy school. So those are probably the two things I can really think about. But I really wasn't a great student in high school. Probably even in grade school, I probably wasn't a great student. I think today they would have called me somebody with attention deficits. Teachers called me the daydreamer. That I was always staring out the window doing something, and I just think I was kind of bored in school. And it probably wasn't until late sophomore year, junior year that I kind of really knew that I better get my act together. If I was going to do well. I kind of joked around. I tell my kids the story that I realized that if I didn't get my act together, my kids probably would be in Kmart shoes. Now, there's nothing wrong with Kmart shoes, but at the time, back in the 80s, everybody, it was all about your shoes that you wore.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember that I wanted to have, be able to buy my kids nice shoes. That's kind of weird to think about that when I was, a junior, but that somehow got me back on the path of getting better grades. And so I went from, a fairly poor student to a student pretty much getting straight A's in high school. And so we met with probably junior year. I think I met with my high school counselor. They're asking you about, hey, what kind of career path would you want to do? And at that time, I went, hey, I think I want to become a physician. And he chuckled and he laughed and he said, I think you better look at something different. I was actually just crushed.
Oh, that is just horrible.
It was, yeah. And I've never been told. I mean, it's good to be told no sometimes, but and so I went to my chemistry instructor at the time, and his name was Mr. Phillips, and I asked him that. I said, hey, I'm kind of maybe now thinking about pharmacy. Would you think that with my grades and that you've seen me in class, what do you think I could make it in pharmacy school? He goes, oh, absolutely. No, did he really believe that or not? I don't know. But the difference was someone believed in me.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that, forward from like junior year, senior year, I was pursuing pharmacy school at a pretty young age. I was kind of far behind, so I needed to catch up. And so I enrolled into Blackhawk even before I got out of high school to try to take some courses. I went to the junior college
Mm-hmm.
here and got a lot of those courses out of the way and saved a lot of money, had a small scholarship. And then I was applying to different pharmacy schools throughout the area. Um, when I was at Blackhawk, I was able to find a small job as a technician or a
Uh-huh.
clerk, whatever you want to call it. The guy who did everything. I was taking out garbage. I was fixing computers. Cleaning the bathrooms. To even on the weekends, the gentleman would allow me to help him out in the pharmacy. And it was down in
Nice.
Silvis, a little place called Cosgrave Pharmacy. They're not there any longer,
Mm-hmm.
but he would make, when I was there, I would see him actually compound, and he would make these ointments for horses. At the time, the Quad Cities had a a racetrack, a horse racetrack called
Mm-hmm.
Quad City Downs, and so a lot of people came to him, and he would make these hoof ointments and different ointments for people that the veterinarians would prescribe, and I always thought that was kind of cool.
That is kind of cool. Like being a city girl myself, being from Chicago,
Sure.
it just would not occur to me that until I moved here, like it would that okay, I know dogs, cats need medicine. I remember when my dog was sick, my mom would take the medicine, put it in the food.
Sure. Sure.
It didn't occur to me that there could be, you know, ointments or like I remember you told me you had was it with the cat, you had to put it in their ear or something like
Yeah, we
that.
make these little ear
Yeah.
gels, and cats do not like bitter medication, so we wind up putting the a specialized cream that we
Hmm.
can put into the ear and deliver the medication that way. And it's really great for certain drugs that can deliver that way, but bitter drugs, and so looking at innovative ways of delivering medication.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so that was when I moved here, and with the Quad Cities, you get the city life, and you get a taste of the rural
sure,
life, and
for
you don't
sure.
have to go very far to get a taste of the rural life,
Yep.
which is kind of neat. And learning all these different things. And one day when I walked into your place, District Drugs, and saw all the pictures of the animals and that, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
I just never knew that. And that was just something learned and thought, this is real. This is really neat. I mean, I like learning new things, but I just, just opened up another little world to me.
Sure, for sure. Yeah.
And
It's interesting the type of animals that we've treated here at the store. I treated a pack of prairie dogs. So they had this fungal infection. So the veterinarian called me, and it was at a zoo, and they had to treat all the prairie dogs for this fungal infection. So how do you get that to these prairie dogs? Yesterday I treated a gecko. Never treated a gecko before, but I've treated an elephant. I've treated monkeys, eagles, owls,
wow.
snakes, rats for breast cancer. I mean, it's amazing,
Yeah.
the little things that we've done, over the years, and obviously horses and things, but obviously your pocket pets and dogs and cats. But
Hmm.
we're not veterinarians, of course, but veterinarians call us for how can we get this medication and to the right size, the right flavor, the right drug delivery system, and so we work pretty closely with the veterinarians that way.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's been a lot of fun that way.
Yeah. I mean, I learned something new, whenever I'm interviewing someone. And so Dr. Frida Tyson, is chiropractor,
Sure.
was on the pod, and she talked about how she was introduced to chiropractic through a vet and who was adjusting a horse.
Hmm.
And I did not, that was something else. I was just, stunned. I was like, I just never thought of chiropractic being used on, well, maybe on an animal
Sure.
that big.
Sure.
And
That actually was
so,
started here in the Quad Cities, chiropractic
mhm.
for veterinarians.
Ah,
There was a place, I believe, it's not Cambridge, but out that way
mhm.
that they started teaching veterinarians how to do that, chiropractic care. So yeah, it's fascinating what you learn
Yeah.
throughout the years.
Yeah. And so you saw how this pharmacist compounded medicines for animals.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
small bit. He didn't do a whole lot, but
Hmm.
just to watch him make an ointment. That's it's going to sound silly, but there's an art form to that.
Hmm.
Hand making these things on a glass tile, and mixing it properly. With spatulas, and there's a little bit of an art there to it, and obviously a science too. But
Yeah.
it was kind of fun watching him, and so he went to St. Louis College of Pharmacy. So he encouraged me to maybe apply there, and I applied a couple different pharmacy schools, and I
Hmm.
got into all of them. But the one that seemed to be a good fit for me was Creighton University out in Omaha, Nebraska. So I went out there and was a little scared about pharmacy school. I'm really kind of the first generation in my family to go on to college, and so there were things they were talking about that I had no clue. I had no clue what physiology was at the time. It took me about a week to figure out what they were talking about,
Hmm.
but honestly, I did very very well in pharmacy school, and I remember thinking again about perhaps becoming a physician. Kind of entered my mind again, and did not go down that path, of course. But a lot of the classes that they were teaching, and one of the first years in classes that we taught, they taught us was something called pharmaceutics, and
Hmm.
pharmaceutics is the kind of the art and science of again of drug development and it's really physical chemistry is the class of what you're taking,
Hmm.
and we did part of that class. You spent a couple days out of the week in a lab, and I remember making a capsule in the lab for the first time, and we made 10 capsules. You make them by hand, you punch them
Hmm.
out by hand, and I thought that was really tedious. And but they said, well, you'll never do that ever again in your career. And I remember being kind of like, well, that's kind of sad, and
Yeah.
we're just teaching us how to do folding papers and these things that they kind of felt was antiquated. But what was the history of pharmacy? But you were going to go on and learn more things about therapeutics and kinetics and things of
Hmm.
that nature, which are really good things to know as a pharmacist. But the history behind pharmacy, they had to teach it, but they were not going to. You're never going to use that in your career. That again, I was kind of bummed by that.
Hmm. Yeah.
So graduated, did well in the top 5%, and came out, came back to the Quad Cities. Never thought I would come back to the Quad Cities. And I worked at a small hospital in Geneseo for
Hmm.
5 years as a assistant director of pharmacy, and did retail and pharmacy there. But a lot of that job was actually doing some compounding, doing IV work, making different gels. I really found myself doing well at those types of things. And um, but the other thing which I found working there was that I was able to make decisions for myself, because you were
Hmm.
a lot of times the only pharmacist on staff at the time, and so you learned how to come up and be a problem solver
Hmm.
for physicians. And well, the great thing about that job was I also learned how to respond to code blues. I was cardioverting people. I was pushing IV drugs. Physicians were asking me, dosages. What should we do next? So it was just a really good experience, and
Yeah.
also working with pain control, doing pain management, dosing patients for their antibiotics, and things that I wouldn't do it at a larger hospital. You
Yeah.
just don't do those types of things. But in a
Hmm.
smaller hospital, I was able to have this great experience, but unfortunately I wasn't going to make a really good living
Hmm.
out doing that. And so the dream was always maybe to own my own pharmacy. So a friend of mine who was associated with Cosgrave Pharmacy, he bought another pharmacy and asked if I could run that pharmacy for him, and maybe have some ownership of that. And so that was a lot of fun. He bought a store in Kelowna, Green Rock, Kelowna, and So I ran that for about 3 years, maybe 2 or 3 years. And what was interesting about that was that they had a hardware store. So in between filling prescriptions, I was putting together a bicycle, maybe doing some plumbing for somebody, cutting glass, threading black pipe. Um, and but that as far as the ownership side of things, that just didn't pan out.
Uh-huh.
And opportunity to buy district drugs, came available. And at the time when I looked at the store,
Mhm.
it wasn't doing any compounding, but what it was doing was an outpatient psych and doing a little bit of filling for the county jail at the time. So
Mhm.
it was a tiny little store, and I thought we had a lot of potential to grow. Um, so my wife and I bought district drugs from a guy who had it for about 3 years and wasn't doing very many prescriptions. And within a year, we really built it up. And I remember looking at, talking to her and saying, I'm bored, that I'm not using the education that I
Uh-huh.
had. I was on the phone with insurance companies all day long, but just counting out pills wasn't a whole lot of fun.
Mhm.
But so it was successful, but just boring. So I told her again I was ready to go back to medical school, and so she was patient with me for sure. So we talked about the possibility of that, and
Mhm.
then shortly after that, we became pregnant with our first daughter, and I knew that probably going to medical school and trying to start a family at the same time, that probably wasn't going to be a great deal for me. So
Yeah, it's hard.
yeah, so I heard about pharmacists doing this thing called compounding, and that
Mhm.
they and there was and I was always again fascinated by it, but didn't know a whole lot about it besides the things I did. And so I wound up taking a course with this company called Professional Compounding Centers of America, and talked my wife into doing it. And it was going to cost me about how much my first year of pharmacy school was, and so I talked her into that, and we came up with a 5 year plan that maybe in 5 years, 5 to 10 years, we'd be able to pay off that bill,
Mhm.
and that would that keep me interested in the pharmacy. I said I think it would. Short story is that we went there, learned how to do these things, and came back and told my wife that she's quitting her job because she was a pharmaceutical sales rep.
Oh.
And I said, "You're gonna quit your job, be at home with our daughter, and maybe a day or two out of the week.
Mhm.
I want you to start marketing for us and help me market this compounding thing that we're
Okay.
gonna do." And the 5 year plan of paying that bill off and building a lab, we paid it off in about 6 months because people learned that I was able to compound, and there was a need and there was a want of people asking me to compound things for them. Um,
So what do you compound like the most? What types of
yeah,
medications?
probably the most things we do. The number one thing is hormone replacement or
Mhm.
bioidentical hormone replacement.
Okay.
Um, and that's what a gal asked me if I would do that, and I told her absolutely not. I wouldn't be interested in doing hormones because my mother had breast cancer at the time, and I did not think hormones was safe.
Mhm.
And she was really persistent, so I told her I would learn this thing about bioidentical if it's really truly different. And I read a book, and it came back, and I joke around that I repented and said that yes, these actually would be a safer option for you. And so all of a sudden, again, women were coming to us left and right asking us to make hormones for them. So that's
Yeah.
that's a big thing for us. You would think men would be a second part of it, and it's a small part. I think we do have opportunities to do things for men
Mhm.
too, but women are more in touch with their bodies, I think, than men are.
Uh-huh.
We do a lot of pain control, topical pain medications. Um, we actually work with every single area in medicine,
Mhm.
whether it's oncology, again, veterinarian, podiatry, um, working with autoimmune issues. So we're working with a little bit of everything that's out there. Um, um, but So we were at our old facility for about 3 to 5 years down there, small lab, and we had an opportunity to buy this building. We moved in this building and build a state of the art lab that we have here. And about 5 years into doing that, we decided to forego traditional pharmacy. We stopped filling prescriptions completely
Mm-hmm.
and decided to just pursue compounding only. A lot of it was because the state of Illinois wasn't paying us very well, and we were
Mm-hmm.
going to go broke being so busy because they were going to pay us 7 months behind in their payments, and we just thought that was not a good business decision to continue filling Medicaid prescriptions, even though we enjoyed doing it. We
Mm-hmm.
kind of felt we needed to pursue the compounding route. So everybody thought we were crazy, so we got rid of all the candy, we got rid of all the
Oh, jeez.
chips
Yeah.
and lottery and things that looked like a traditional drugstore,
Mm-hmm.
and moved everything out and brought in all of our vitamins and put in an area so people could come in and have an education center and expanded the lab a couple different times since then. So, but we've it's been fun. I enjoy coming to work every day. You know, um, coming up with something new.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm at roughly 9,000 formulas that I've written.
Wow.
In the last 20 years that way. So
Yeah.
so it's fun.
Can you tell me the difference between the synthetic hormones and the bioidentical
Sure,
hormones and why the bioidentical hormones are safer?
sure. Well, synthetic for most people means that it's man-made.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in doing medicinal chemistry, we would say that we would make something have more affinity for a receptor site. So the synthetics actually they attach to the receptor site very nicely. It's kind of like having a key made. If you ever had a key made that's a little off a little bit, and you go to unlock a door, the key goes in and unlocks the door, but you can't unrelease it. It's there, and that's what a synthetic does. It just gets in there, it binds the receptor, and it doesn't let go. That's not really a safe thing. So
Mm-hmm.
bioidentical is the exact same kind of hormones that your body normally makes. What God has created in you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's three different types of estrogen that the body makes: estriol, estradiol, and estrone.
Mm-hmm.
We mainly use two of those estrogens. We use bioidentical progesterone, the exact same thing that your body makes. Um, and a lot of times, if you talk to a physician, they say progesterone's progesterone, and
Mm-hmm.
and I say, well, if that's true, then why is it that I can give a woman natural progesterone and it maintains her pregnancy? As in fact, today we just got done making some suppositories for a gal who is having a hard time maintaining that pregnancy, so it's progestational. But if I gave
Okay.
her a synthetic progesterone, which the doctor is telling me it's the same thing, I said, that's an abortifactant. I said, do
Mm-hmm.
you still think they're the same
Same.
thing? Well, maybe not.
No.
And so but bioidentical just basically means it's not man-made. It's found in nature. It's found in the human body. So we're trying to mimic that
Got it.
that
Got
way.
it.
So,
Okay.
and we do that with lots of hormones, not only estrogens and progesterone, but same thing with testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with thyroid. We want to give humans human thyroid, not a synthetic thyroid that
Mm-hmm.
is, or even a lot of people call natural thyroid pig thyroid. I
Right.
think actually a bioidentical thyroid is a better way of going. So
Okay.
we work with physicians that way for that.
So you and the physician are really involved in that patient and their history and their, of course, I'm sure, test results and and this is a personal thing that when you are compounding a medication, that this is just to me, it seems this isn't just another patient. I got another script here. I'm just going to
Correct. Correct.
fill this bottle with pills. It seems you have a personal connection to each person that comes in here.
Correct. Yeah, we've called it the triad relationship:
Uh-huh.
the patient, physician, and the pharmacist. And so we all need to be talking about what's going on. They need it. The patient understands that this is being specially made for them. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just coming out of a bottle and put it into the jar or
Mm-hmm.
slapping a label on it. So we want to know about their allergies. We want to know about skin sensitivities. We want to understand, if they had problems with other medications in the past, what has worked for them. And so we are customizing that prescription for them
Mm-hmm.
that way. And the physician, a lot of times I get a physician calls me on the phone and will share with me, for instance, say it's a thyroid patient. They'll tell me what their levels are. Here's what the patient's TSH is. Here's what the T4 is, T3.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have antibodies? What have they tried in the past? And we come up with a dosage together. And it's an educated guess, but then we take another lab result and figure out how we need to adjust.
Uh-huh.
And we're
Yeah.
able to find that exact fit for that patient. So it is a unique way of approaching medicine.
Yeah.
So some physicians really like that, but other times people just want that cookie cutter medicine, and that's just not what we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm vice president of the celiac group of the Quad Cities, and
Okay,
so I know we have to be careful about gluten being in any medications, supplements,
sure.
and so now is gluten something that would be regularly in something that you compound or not, or
We're very sensitive to that,
mm-hmm.
knowing that our patients that we're seeing are typically are because we see a lot of gluten patients,
Yeah,
gluten
activity,
sensitivities,
uh-huh.
and so we're making sure we're not putting that in there.
Mm-hmm.
But even with things that we may find, other patients might be sensitive to a certain filler. So we work with that patient to find out what have they used before, what are they cooking with, is
Mm-hmm.
there something we can use as a filler, and try to make it as clean as possible for them. And that's really important because I it wasn't so much a gluten sensitivity, but certain proteins that this
Uh-huh.
this lady that she's now passed away, but if she got this protein, she had this cardiac arrhythmia, and so we needed
Wow.
to, and she had to go in the hospital and get cardioverted, and so we had to make all of our medications as clean as possible. So, and people thought, oh, she's just quote unquote crazy. Well, no, she wasn't crazy. She truly had this outcome. So you want to work with those patients, patients who can only use certain rice flour,
Uh-huh.
or a patient who sucrose is the only thing they can use. And so we work with them that way, and for their fillers or their capsules.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear that that takes a lot of worry and stress away from a patient when
Sure.
they have when you know if you're allergic to something, am I going to take this, am I going to have a reaction, just that worry alone
Yep. Yep.
um, is just causes all sorts of health problems. And I mean, well, we know stress
Yep.
alone keeps is such causes so many health problems and
Probably the biggest thing that
everything.
people are sensitive to that's in medications is lactose. I think
Okay.
20% of society has lactose intolerance, but
Hmm.
yet lactose is a part of that. So that's a big thing that we are always looking for, making sure we never use any lactose in any of our medications. So, but even animals are have allergies. We found certain animals with sensitivities to certain proteins, and so you want to make sure you're flavoring in that thing or not flavoring it the correct way because of you know those food allergens that they have.
Yeah.
So it's good to talk to the owner and the veterinarian that way.
Okay. Yeah. Well, anything else that you want to mention on the podcast about district drugs, about your journey
Yeah,
to
I mean,
pharmacy?
I think I'm blessed that I'm able to do what I think I've been called to do.
Hmm.
I think I've been called to help people this way. I'm blessed to be able to work with my wife, who is she. I'm very shy. I'm a very shy person. I'm okay here in the store,
Mm-hmm.
but she's very much she's a theater major, so she has
Okay.
no problem, being in front of people and being in front of physicians, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's been very helpful for me,
Mm-hmm.
as an entrepreneur, to have that person to help us out, to help us market it that way. I think that you know um, uh, you know everything's always changing.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to develop more of a consultative services
Mm-hmm.
for patients, because people want to come in and talk about their medications or supplements. And so really, in the healthcare field, I don't think there's anyone who's been trained more in medication than obviously a pharmacist in nutrition. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're opening those types of consultative services for people to come in and talk to us about what are their health goals, and what are their medications they want to get off of. And they are a fee for service, but we're looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
We're excited that that we're going to finally be able to open these doors again. With COVID, that's been going on for the year. The doors have been closed for a year, but starting here in a few weeks, we're opening the doors back up so people can come in and ask those kind of questions. So we're excited about the future.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. When you talk to people about medication and nutrition, I mean, are they are they surprised about the role of nutrition in health? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they realize that just because I'm prescribed something, there is a nutritional depletion. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Medications can cause a depletion in certain nutrients in your body, and so I think they're really surprised by that. The simple one, just because if you're on an oral birth control pill, or you taking an estrogen, or whether it's synthetic or natural, it's going to deplete, B6. And so it's important to be on a B6. Well, then you have certain people out there who have MTHFR
Mm-hmm.
issues, and they can't utilize that B6. So you went out and picked up something at the blank mart of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that's really being utilized, and is it doing you any good? And so it's important to educate them that way. If they're on a statin drug, do you realize that it's depleting coenzyme Q, and that could be causing in the long term some heart issues and some memory issues and some
Uh-huh.
muscle issues? So what you take is important. So we're here to help educate, our patients and our clients that way, and even our physicians. They don't realize that the education I got in nutrition when I was in pharmacy school was that, well, you know if you take it, it's going to make expensive urine, and that's a terrible analogy. Your body utilizes that nutrition,
Yeah.
and as I tell my doctors, that, well, if that's the case, if it just makes expensive urine, you spill it all out, I might as well stop drinking water. Well, why'd you want to do that? Well, if I'm spilling out 99.99% of all the water I drink, so I must not need it. So so they quickly realize that what they're saying is kind of silly. So we
Mm-hmm.
do need these vitamins. We've been talking about vitamin D for 25 years, but
Mm-hmm.
vitamin D hasn't come into the spotlight for to the last really 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probiotics we talked about for 25 years. People are now talking about probiotics. So we're recognizing things that we need, but it's I'm I look forward to talking to people about why they need certain things out there from a nutritional standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you had a teacher in high school who recognized your talent
Yeah,
and steered you to this path of and of pharmacy school and down this road. And um, I love that story because that person recognized that, and I think you don't know the power of your words and what
yeah,
they can do to a person. And if you say, oh, that's horrible, you shouldn't do that, and then you go ask somebody else and they saw that in you, and they're all having that support, and it makes such a difference even if you just want to try something, even if you had decided, well, okay, well, this maybe isn't for me, I'll try something else, but you did it, you tried it, you had an idea, you tried, and I think when and it doesn't, I'm not picking on teachers or
Sure,
counselors. I'm
sure,
saying
sure.
everybody, that when someone comes to you or just you make a comment about something, that it could be taken a different way, and really affects someone. I had a conversation with someone about words,
Mm,
and I said, words don't really matter. I just say to myself, these words don't matter, and no matter what somebody says to me, it isn't going to hurt me.
mm.
And I said, you know what? But words do hurt,
Words do matter.
and they do matter.
Yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
your story, that first step there, I think really illustrates that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I, it's good for me to remember that too, because sometimes you want to be encouraging of people and see potential in people,
Hmm.
and especially young kids. You know what junior in high school or sophomore in high school really understands that this education makes a difference, but you can turn those things around, and that didn't define me,
Hmm.
and I think it's important that yeah, what encouraging words that Mr. Phillips gave to me, that said, yeah, you would make a great pharmacist. And did he believe that? I don't know, but
What?
it doesn't matter, because that's what
Hmm.
I heard, and
Yeah.
so and I was able to go back to that. So I'm thankful for that.
Well, thank you for talking to me today. And if you want to contact Jim, he has a website, districtdrugs.com,
Correct.
and you're on Facebook, District Drugs and Compounding Center. His phone is 309-786-8431. And if you want to email, info at what I have, districtdrugs.com.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what the S on the end, drugs. Yeah.
Okay.
.com. Yep.
And all that information will be in the show notes. So if you didn't get it now, you can go to the show notes and find it there. So thank you, Jim.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to the Holistic Life Coach Podcast. Show notes can be found at theholisticlifecoachpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast to be notified when the next episode drops. Until next time, beautiful souls.